Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. I don't know what's happening. But
we have a 1 hour stream, a 3-minute stream.
We'll delete the other one. I still haven't seen us come back to YouTube yet. Or
We're
can
not back
people
on
see
Twitch
me?
yet either.
No?
Not yet.
Should be streaming for 30 seconds now.
Oh, there it is. Finally gives me a watch link. And back.
Okay.
I believe.
Yep. Back on Twitch. How we doing over on YouTube? Come on. Come on, YouTube. There we go. We're back on YouTube. Great. All right, we'll see how long that lasts. Sorry about the interruption, everybody. I'm completely baffled why this keeps happening with no warning, with no indication that the stream is dropping on my end. But anyways, we'll get back to your questions here from our live audience, and then we'll jump back into the show shortly. Yeah. Okay. Did you have any more? We're in the middle of answering any questions.
Oh man, that was like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, then fill the chat with your questions. In the meantime, shout out to Sweet Time for the follow on Twitch. Joshua Mercer, 100 bits, says, I remember us going over tackle and who Erik thinks we will go after in the draft. So if we had to choose for edge and tackle in the first round, which player do you think we will target at the spot in the first? And which player would both of you choose at that spot, for both positions?
My kind of gut on tackle is still leaning towards Blake Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is a stylistic fit with them. He has boatloads of experience. I know Monroe Freeling is the one who's considered the young up-and-comer, but Miller's like 3 months older than him. They're like almost the same age.
Yeah, it's more of like a developmental thing, though, right? Because he hasn't played a lot, and people think the ceiling is maybe higher.
Freeling's has 18 starts.
Right.
Miller has 54.
Right.
So
it's projection versus production.
Right. And when you look at the comparables, every little comparable is just slightly better in Freeling's favor, like from a athletic standpoint.
Right.
But experience, tenacity, junkyard dog in him,
and that's all. When you say he's a better fit, that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nothing necessarily schematic.
Stylistically, he can play right tackle because I really do think they're shifting Panay. I'm leaning more that way now. Especially with the Borum signing, it sure seems like Panay's on the move here.
But I think Brad was pretty transparent there, saying we were just going to take the best tackle that was available because we know Panay can play wherever, and I think that's going to be the approach in the draft too.
Yes, if it ends up being Freeling and he's a left, they'll just keep Panay. Right. But it sure seems like they're leaning. I mean, maybe they're not, but for me, Miller and Freeling are neck and neck, and I'm giving the edge to Miller on experience and just grit, right? "Quote unquote" grit.
Grit. It is not too late to sign up for the community mock. You have to do it by midnight tonight. Real quick.
If we were picking an edge, I have 3 guys that I think they would consider: Keldric Faulk, Akeem Messidor, TJ Parker. I think those are the 3 guys they would consider at 17. Cassius Howell is a guy that I have written off because of his inability to set an anchor, and his run defense is really not great. But more and more and more people analysts that I keeps telling me maybe he's a better run defender than what is being led on. And I don't know if I buy it, but I could see him fitting in. I just can't see him being the Lions' first round pick and then having him not start, right? And what they want is they need a guy who can set the edge in their scheme to start. And so I'm still not at a spot where I'm willing to say Howell would be a starter in the Lions scheme. He's probably arguably the best pass rusher of that whole of those other, better than those other three guys from a pass rushing standpoint. But like, I don't see how he, like, they would have to change their scheme, which is what I don't think they're necessarily doing. So I'm a little bit lower on Cassius Howell, even though I think maybe he deserves to be in the conversation. And I keep being told by analysts he needs to be in the conversation. But again, analysts are just telling me what a guy's value is, as opposed to whereas I'm trying to say, where does it fit in the scheme?
Yeah.
So if those are the guys I think they would consider in the first round if they were going somewhere else, or if they were going on edge.
Gotcha. Swag King asks, would you rather pick a starting caliber offensive tackle? What does the 4-5 mean? 4-5? Oh, like the fourth or fifth best starting tackle in the first round of the draft and run it back with Mahogany and Frazier at guard, or draft the top offensive guard in the first round and Borum or a second rounder at right tackle.
Well, okay. Let me. It's tough to address, right? Because I do think Maui-Noa and Fano are going to be off the board first. And so then you're talking about Miller or Freeling as like OT on the national boards as OT 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Versus Vega, Ione, who would be the top guard. Yeah. I think from the Lions perspective, those guys are going to be close. Even if Vega's a little bit more, has a better like ceiling for what this team needs, and I know they don't draft for need, all that stuff. It just makes more sense. I don't think the difference is big enough between the Ione and then like Miller that they would be like, we got it. You know, it's just that big of a gap. And I don't know. I mean, I could see them do it. I could see them say, hey, we're just going to take the best one. And he doesn't have as many flaws as the tackles do. And so we'll just take him and roll. But it'd be a
risk.
Harder sell.
Because
look, the free agent signings don't say that that's a route they'd consider. You don't get 10 interior guys if you're thinking about that interior guy. I also don't think he'll be there. But
for me, it's just like you have young developmental talent at guard. You have a Mahogany. You have Miles Frazier, guys that could be your long-term answer. You don't have that at tackle. Like, I'm sorry, but I think I'm ready to call the Giovanni Manu thing like done. It's not about it's not about need in 2026 necessarily. It's about need in 2027, 2028. Like, you can see a path where the Lions have their interior offensive line figured out. You can see it being Mahogany. You can see it being Frazier. There isn't a vision at left tackle or right tackle, whichever one Sewell doesn't play long term. So I know, like you said, that we're playing the need game a little bit, and Brad insists he won't. But
I don't think the difference is that significant, because you're also weighing, and I hate to use this argument, but you're also weighing in like the whole positional value thing, right?
Yeah,
like it's going to be it's not going to be a huge like defining category, but like when you're talking about guys that are pretty comparable, that are in the same bucket of players that you're choosing from, that can be a bit of a conversation, or that can get into the conversation.
Frazier could be a tackle, Sky. I'm not counting that out completely. But.
I'm close to it though, but they keep saying he's getting cross-trained, so. But I don't know. I want to see it. Look, everybody is, screaming about Fano having arm length under 33, right? Like, oh my gosh, how do you draft him when his arm length's under 33? I mean, Miles Frazier has the exact same arm length as Fano. So if you're one of the guys saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's the same length. If you don't have a problem with Fano, then you don't have a problem with Frazier either. I think the way they play is different though too, because Fano's athleticism and the way he angles himself and the way he can stay balanced but reach gives him extra length. I don't know if Frazier necessarily has that. He's more compact. But
yeah,
just an interesting arm length discussion. Can I go back to Keldric Faulk for a second? Because there's been some questions on him.
Please.
The reason I think people are down on Faulk is that he was in 24. He was a base end, and he's this big. I want to get his height right so I don't shortchange him here. 6'6", 276, base defensive end in a 4-3. And he was attack up the field. He was anchor. He was push inside. He did all kinds of different things. Then last year, Auburn hired a defensive coordinator by the name of DJ Durkin. You ever heard him before? Sound familiar?
Another DJ?
No, it was he was the Michigan defensive coordinator when they ran their 3-3-5.
Periods.
Do you remember that? I don't remember. It was long ago. But Durkin shifted them to a 3-3-5, and he went from playing the edge to playing almost like an interior 5-eye 4, or like a 5 tackle 4-eye all the time. And as you have seen in Detroit, when you get a guy inside like that, where instead of just trying to, beat the edge or dip inside with his athleticism, you're now putting him over the tackle or inside of the tackle. You're making life harder on him because he's having to beat two guys on an every down basis. And so his production just tanked. And when his production tanked because of the scheme and what they were asking him to do. And so people are really down on him because you saw what looked like a regression. Right. There's also, there's going to be arguments about, he doesn't bend as well as, some of the other edge rushers in this class. I mean, he's also like the biggest edge rusher in this class. He's like he's like a 3 technique in a lot of ways. Like, he shouldn't bend like the other guys, but he wins in different ways. He's not going to be this burn off the edge 250-pound guy. He's a 275-pound guy who's going to anchor and use strength and then use different ways to attack. But he fits what the Lions do as a base end, just like Messidor does. But Messidor's, he's lighter, he's a little shorter, and he wins more with his bend. TJ Parker wins more with his bend. And so, you have to look at them in what they do differently. But Faulk gets a lot of hate because it looks like he regressed when a lot of it wasn't his fault.
It was really interesting kind of seeing Brad twist around talking about what they want in an edge.
Sure.
Because he was like, he said all the things that they normally say, which is like, hey, setting an edge is important. Being a run defender is important. But he made sure to really insist that they value pass rush. They
says it every year. Every year they want a pass rusher.
Right.
And then every year you don't see it on the field.
Right. Then every year they get the big end can crusher guy.
Yeah, because they I think they do want that burner, but that burner's not a starter.
Right.
Like that burner's a sub, which
It's
is
James
why
Houston.
right, which is why a guy like Howell isn't going to make sense in the first round. But if like Howell goes in the second round or the third round and you're not quote unquote starting him, well then it's a little easier. That's why I think guys like uh, Barham from Michigan, Keon Crawford, the other Auburn pass rusher, Romello Height, uh, all those guys like in the third round, if they trade up to get into the third round, or one of those guys slide to the fourth, those guys would be very welcomed into Detroit.
Yeah.
And Barham's stock is just rising now that people are figuring out that he is like this just contact guy. Like he just loves to initiate contact and he's got this super power. It's super powerful and stuff like that. But like if Howell slid or if you're comfortable with what Barham can do as like you could draft him in the second round as your Sam and he could also be like a truer version of what you want from your Sam,
Right.
where he's got that extra level of pass rusher and edge setting and all those things that Derek Barnes, they hope Derek Barnes can do. But maybe you get him in the second or third as opposed to, Howell in the first. And there's a few guys like that this year. You want a sleeper? George Gums from Florida.
Why does that name sound
He's
familiar?
gonna be probably gonna be like a fourth or fifth. You might have wrote on him. I bet you wrote on him at the combine. High character.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be surprising if
He was either a guy that I was going to write about and didn't say anything of interest, or I did write on him. I can't remember.
He's another guy, stand up pass rushing type of guy, but he's got some. They dropped him a handful of times. You can get him on day 3, and like adding a guy like Gums to a Wanham, that might be, something they're comfortable with. It's not necessarily ideal, I think, but it's something I think the Lions would consider.
A couple alerts here, and then we might get back into the show here. G-Man Jr. with the 57 months subscribed on Twitch. Appreciate you. California Line, 30 months, says with Kirby's injury, do they have to cut him at the end of the year to avoid cap hell? If the best way they continue to say is they are going to have to manage the injury. Yeah, kind of.
I mean, it doesn't have to be at the end of the year, but like you could try and find the off season at some point, I guess.
Right. So the trick with his contract is that he gets option bonuses every single year, including this year, which has already passed. His option bonus was due March 20th, so 5 days ago they let it pass, which is certainly an indication that there's an expectation that he plays this year in some manner. The problem is that the option bonuses get progressively bigger and bigger, and it was $9.6 million this year, which is not that bad. $9.6 million that you split between the next 5 years, so less than $2 million a year. Then it jumps to 16.6 next year, which is significant. And then it's 19, and then it's 23 million. 16 million next year is kind of the cutoff point where you're like, are we willing to spend what is essentially, 16.6 million plus his, negligible base salary, 1.2 million, plus the signing bonus proration, plus up to 510,000 in game bonuses, plus a workout bonus. It's tough. And then if you wait another year, it's not just the 16 million, it's the 19 million option bonus that you're paying. And so it's not an ideal situation. And if things don't look good this year, you probably pull the ripcord next offseason before that option bonus kicks in, which is March 17th, according to Over the Cap. You can't really restructure, unfortunately, either. An option bonus is essentially a pre-restructure because it's not salary, it's a bonus already. And that's what a restructure is turning salary into a bonus. So it's a cut or it's a, hey, it's a cut. Like, there really are no other options. Unless you can somehow ask him to take a pay cut on an option bonus, which I don't even know if you can do that. I guess you could theoretically do that.
You could trade him if someone was willing to pass his physical.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my latest conspiracy theory with Kirby?
Ooh, let me hear it.
This is a positive one.
Okay.
Have you been watching these 2 minutes with article little videos that they did? Did you see the Rock Yassine one?
Maybe
when they asked Rock who who would he take as his 2-on-2 basketball partner? If he could take any teammate as his 2-on-2 basketball partner, he picked Kirby. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, Kirby was hurt all last year, the only time Rock was on the team. So if Rock's picking him, maybe his knee is better. Maybe he has been,
or maybe he got his knee injured playing basketball.
So I think Kirby might be okay if Rock's willing to take him. If he had all the players he could pick from, picking Kirby, probably gonna be all right.
Sure. Josh Mercer 100-bit says, I'm confused with the Kirby injury. Are we assuming he won't come back even close to where he was at before the injury? I just see and hear so much pessimism around Kirby right now.
I mean, we don't know.
We don't know, but we're kind of just reflecting what we're being told here. We're being told, we all, like, the media saw Kirby Joseph, the most dejected I've ever seen a player in the middle of last year, when he practiced once and never again for the rest of the season. We heard Dan Campbell say, I don't know if this is something you can fix. It's just something you have to manage basically for the rest of your career.
Sounds like a Frank situation.
Right.
Right.
We've heard doctors offer their perspective. Granted, they don't have all the information, but they have more information than I do. Say, this is not good. This could be degenerative. This could be something with this cartilage that he never gets back. And so until we hear something positive, it's hard to be positive about it.
I think the positive news is Rock's taking him as his 2-on-2 partner.
Sure.
And
if you want to cling to that.
And we're going to get an update in 3 weeks. And so
perpetually for 3 weeks.
So we're good. I'm feeling great about it.
We're not going to get an update at next week's owners meetings from him.
No. Get it at the draft.
But yeah, is the pre-draft press conference far enough in the future? Is the draft press conferences is that enough in the future to get this Kirby update that we're chasing?
I tell you, I just want to talk about the picks today. I don't know much about Kirby. I'll get you an update next time I talk to you guys in minicamp.
Right. I don't know. To me, there's just too much smoke around Kirby's situation for me to just think he's going to be fine. I hope I'm wrong.
We'll see. Yeah, well, I mean, we're not doctors.
Nope. Not yet. No word on Branch. Nothing.
In recovery. Keep seeing all these videos of other athletes that have Achilles injuries coming back and looking great, and I'm always encouraged by that, but trying not to get too excited.
All right. Someone asked about Alim McNeill's contract. When can we get rid of these bad contracts? Let's look at Alim's together real quick. So, he got his one option bonus already. He's just big salary. So, there are actually relatively easy outs for Alim. if that's the way they want to go. It's the benefit of not doing all these option bonus contracts that they're doing. He just got his one last year, not one this year. The signing bonus proration is almost already over. So you have big salary this year. This is the 1 year you can't really do it because his salary is all guaranteed. That's why. $3 million of his salary is guaranteed next year, so you'd have to eat that if you cut him. You'd have to eat these 2 signing bonus prorations, $4 million there, and then the $3 million prorations here, so another 9. So 9 plus 4 is 13, 16. Plus another 16-ish. It's right there. I'm just doing the math. But you get $12 million in cap space. You could do it next year if like things are really bad. It's a lot easier that final year of his contract. So, if it doesn't work out with Alim, next year's is the way you can get out of it. You are going to eat some dead money, but then you have a big need at defensive tackle, and you kind of already have one.
Yeah, you have a depth need. You create a starting need.
And then the thing to always keep in mind, let's say he does bounce back and he's playing like a top 10 defensive tackle again, because so much of his cap hit is based in salary. That's a restructure option. You could take $20 million of this $21 million salary next year and kick it into the future, add a couple void years. Suddenly that $20 million cap hit next year is $15 million less ish. But then you're adding to next year and the void years. So it's an option if that contract bothers you. Option to get out.
Yeah, unfortunately, defensive tackles just cost a lot.
They do. As of like right around when they re-signed Alim, it felt like it wasn't that expensive, and then it just explosions. All right, let's get back to the show. I'm gonna stop eating. I'm gonna put these little pretzel slim things away to avoid the temptation. And
I think void years are good, Rob. It's like using a credit card to build credit. You know what I mean? Like, you're using it, and then you're gonna end up paying it off, and you can do it when money is tight. It's a way of forcing a little bit of payment down the road. It's not a bad thing as long as you don't abuse it, and they're not abusing it right now. What was the contract we saw from the Eagles? Inevitably, we see one of these from the Eagles every year, where it's like a 1-year contract with like 5 voided years added on.
Yeah, there was one where it was like a $1 million signing bonus that they needed to prorate 5 years. I'm like, well, what?
Yeah,
I need to find that contract because now it was so funny to me, and I tweeted about it.
But they do that like every year. It seems like they end up like they get a contract, they go real low with the base, and then you get high in the bonus, and then extend it out over 5 years. So there's a lot of contract trends now, Rob, that are a lot of new angles that teams have taken. Like adding in the option years, that wasn't something that was big 5 years ago. That's become something that teams do a lot more nowadays. There's a lot of little things like that that people have tried to utilize to manipulate the cap.
This is incredible to me. Tevin Jenkins, a 1-year. It's not $4 million. I don't know why they say it's a $4 million deal. It's clearly a $1,005.2 million deal. But they're just prorating that signing bonus 5 years, which is really only prorating it 2 years because it's all just going to accelerate next year. And You're splitting a $5.2 million cap hit between next year and this year. And it looks silly, but it makes sense, right? Like, instead of spending all $5.2 $8.2 million in cap space. Here, you're almost splitting it completely evenly between this year and next year, despite it just being a 1-year contract. DJ Chark's was something like that because Kelly wrote something on his retirement yesterday and mentioned that he got a 1-year, $10 million contract. I'm like, dear God, we spent that much on DJ Chark? And I'm like, oh yeah, we
wasn't
did.
It like 3 and 7 or something like that?
It was something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Detroit fan man, yes, Ben Barch did officially sign with the Lions. They just announced it about an hour ago. I don't think that takes Venga Ioane off the board necessarily. Because Barch is just a dart throw. He's as much of a dart throw as I think Turner is at defensive end.
Maybe a little less.
Yeah. But they do have a lot of competition there. Like, they got a lot of bodies in that room. So it's certainly a crowded room, but because I think there's still no, like, this guy's 100% going to be the starter, I don't think Brad would pass on Ioane just because of need, just because of a lack of need. If they view him as an elite player, a guy that can walk right in and win a starting job, they'll take him. We just did have a conversation, though, that, would you rather have Ioane as maybe the best guard in the draft class or the third or fourth best tackle? And I think both of us agreed that in this draft class, the third or fourth best tackle is still probably a better fit for the team's long-term needs. It's a better fit in terms of positional value, and they wouldn't be conceding talent, because I think the talent between whoever your OT3, OT4 is and Ioane is not that different. No question. And we don't really know what their level of belief is in Mahogany or Frazier or Scruggs. But they do have options there. And I think that's also part of the point. It's like there are at least options at left guard on the roster right now. I'm not sure how many of us are that eager to watch Larry Borum play right tackle for this football team as a starter. Brad did throw a pretty heavy endorsement behind him, don't get me wrong. And his PFF grade in terms of pass protection was excellent at right tackle last year. But I don't know. I'm not thrilled about that one. Saw a Lions plate frame while driving around Aurora, Colorado. Nice. Who's driving around Colorado with the Lions? What do you call it? License plate. That's the word. Borum is a backup plan. I really see him as that's what I think is probably the primary plan. Even if Brad won't admit it. It's just that here are my concerns. I think if the Lions are going to go with a rookie tackle this year, I think they have to take him at 17. I think you are taking a ginormous risk waiting till the second round. And if you're doing that, and most people think you're doing that, people can manipulate the draft order and make it hard for you. To accomplish that goal. There's a tweet from our good friend Brandon Lee Gowden yesterday saying, hey, the Eagles are a good bet to trade up and get a tackle. And that I won't say it shook me to my core, but I mean, like that is something that, the Eagles probably looking at the Lions roster and saying, that team probably needs a tackle. That's a team that if we want to get the third or fourth best tackle, we might have to jump and go get him. And we might have to jump to 16. That's a real possibility that the Lions are going to have to prevent or be prepared for, or whatever it is. So, yeah, just something to keep in mind. why in general you don't want to be in a position where you have to take a specific position yet. I think that's where the Lions are at right now. Hi, buddy. You're back.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Had to take that real fast.
You can deal with life. I'll allow it.
Daughter's birthday today, so
ooh,
make a couple arrangements and answer a phone call or 12.
HSW, thank you for the 14 months. Saying it's the Amon-Ra St. Brown month. It's true, I'm not that thrilled about Cade either, but I at least see more of the vision there, right? Like, it's a young player who's new to the position who only seems to be getting better at the position. I just preferred a more proven option there, while recognizing there weren't a lot of those in free agency available.
Yeah.
McGovern was kind of my ideal target, and he never hit free agency, so. Although I would have also preferred, what's his name? Biotish.
Linderbaum?
No, Biotish.
You wanted Linderbaum. I understand.
No, not at $28 million a year. All right, let's get back into the show. Okay, I think Ash is where we'll start. You don't even have it open. Pfft.
Who?
You? Oh, no.
Yeah, you. I just wasn't clicked on the right page.
Oh, okay.
See, look, now I'm not on there anymore. Right?
No, your logo's still there.
Oh,
wait,
well,
no, it's still there.
No,
Doesn't matter. Who cares? Here we go. And we are back here on the midweek mailbag, answering your Detroit Lions questions here now that free agency is near a close here, and we also had a Brad Holmes media press podcast appearance to kind of reinvigorate the news cycle here. Let's take our next question from Twitter. Ash Soden asks, what scheme changes do you think our free agency moves could be pointing to? For example, do the McCreary and Isian signings point to more nickel, more gap scheme running on offense because of the Mays and Pacheco signings?
I don't think any of the defensive signings point to any scheme change at all.
Okay. Okay.
And so I do believe we'll know more when they come out of the draft, depending on which position they might prioritize, how many other players they add at different positions, etc. But the McCreary and Isian moves for me they look almost like one for one, like McCreary for Amik,
Yeah.
and then Isian for Avonte Maddox. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that it's a strong indicator one way or another based on the defensive free agency moves. And the Wanham move actually makes me think they're going to stick with the same style of front that they've done in the past.
But I guess what about their inaction? What about the inaction of not adding a starting capable linebacker? Like, I know you're big on Damone Clark, and we're going to talk about him in a second here, but do you think the fact that they invested in a nickel, and still like have Ennis, I know everyone is completely down on him, but I think there's at least an expectation that he's going to come in and compete. Do you think the fact that they only have 5 linebackers even on the roster right now is maybe a sign that maybe more nickel's coming? You're not buying that?
Well, I don't know. That's the trick. Like I'm that is the one question that I have is I don't know if that is an indicator that they are not going to, that they're going to play less three linebacker, or if it's an indicator that they're just going to take a linebacker high.
Right.
I know Shep has talked in the past about the difficulty of a rookie playing linebacker in his first year. We saw it with Malcolm. We saw it with Jack, right? So if they're going to pick a linebacker early and then just throw him into the mix and expect him to be able to swim, that's a big ask.
Yeah.
So on one side, I'm saying, oh, well, they'll probably invest in a linebacker to compete with Malcolm, but maybe they're going to back away from it. And then at the same time, I'm like, well, they haven't addressed anything, so maybe they're going to invest heavily. And I'm like talking myself back and forth in between which way they could go because I really see it. That's why I don't envision a schematic change on defense until I see how the draft unfolds and how they attack or don't attack the linebacker spot because you need an edge rusher, you need an offensive tackle, and that's what most people are expecting them to do with their first two picks. But sneaky need is that linebacker could come up and shake things up. And if they do take a linebacker in that top 50, it wouldn't be unexpected. It would be, but I think it would go against the grain of what most people are thinking.
Sure.
But at the same time, it kind of looks like there's a need if they want to stick with what they do.
Yeah. We're definitely dealing with an incomplete picture, of, full picture of the puzzle here, with draft being a big piece left. And listen, they're probably still going to sign a couple guys, whether it's before the draft or after the draft. But I want to go back to the offense part of this question because, we had our conversation with Drew Petzing, and he talked about how, his first season as an offensive coordinator in Arizona, he thought they were going to run some, more one kind of running play, but then realized that the talent he had, that maybe a better running style was a different running style was a better fit. So do you think there's anything based on probably more the Mays signing than the Pacheco signing that says, hey, maybe a little bit more gap?
Yeah. Because Mays is better moving forward. And, he can do a little pull, but he's better getting north-south and trying to hurt people. And Pacheco's better when you get him north-south because he loves to run to contact and he loves to run behind like a duo. Yep. That's kind of his bread and butter. And so those two signings do indicate to me that there's a potential to see more gap incorporated this year. At the same time, I think Gibbs is a better lean in zone. Right. And so it's very possible that this is a team that's still dominated by zone because that's what suits Gibbs best. But they do have more gap incorporated into it, when Pacheco's on the field or, I think Gibbs can do both, right? Like he can live in that gap too. But, it's not going to be a huge schematic shift. If anything, it's just, I think we're going to see maybe an uptick. Last year, it was outside zone was the most, then duo, and then gap. We might see gap and duo flip like it was in 24 when they had gap a little more high. I think when he's on the field, they'll do both.
Let's go back to a little bit of the linebacker and defense talk here because we got a couple questions specifically about linebacker. John on Twitter asks, given Damone Clark's familiarity with Shep and having valuable starting experience, is he someone you could see winning a starting job in camp? Seems like the Cowboys fans were puzzled as to why they waived him from what it sounds to be maybe a bad scheme fit there.
Yeah. I kind of view him as like a Grant Stewart type replacement. Okay. He's a guy who does well on special teams, and if that's all you get out of him, okay. But I do think he'll get a chance to compete with Malcolm for a starting role. And if they, wait till day 3 to add a rookie, I certainly think Clark might be the biggest competition for Malcolm, who I have penciled in as the current starter. If they add a rookie in the top 50, that's going to hurt Clark's chances of, he's still going to get an opportunity. It's just he's going to be a little bit further down the depth chart. So, Stewart got a chance last year to see if he could cut it on defense. And it just didn't work. And he slowly kind of went from LB4 to LB5, and then he was LB6 by the time the season was over. So I'm kind of envisioning Clark the same way. I think he'll be LB4 right now, have a chance. He'll challenge Nowaski. Nowaski could develop and push him down to 5 like he did with Stewart. or we could maybe we see Clark rise. I think he'll get a chance, but I'm still penciling in Malcolm right now.
Let me bring in Thomas Stevo's question from Twitter as well, because when you say you have Malcolm penciled it as a starter right now, I'm curious as to where, because as Thomas Stevo asked, talk to me about Derek Barnes' fit at the will. Does he have the pass coverage ability to play there? Could they move Jack to Will and Barnes go to Mike? Or where does Malcolm? Do they get rid of the Sam? Like, I guess, how do you see it shaking out with the roster as is in specific spots?
Right. So to understand how they use their linebackers, you have to kind of understand how those roles change depending on if they're in base versus when they're in sub packages. Yep. So when they're in base, Jack's the Mike, and then you have a Sam who's like a pass rushing, run stopping linebacker that's going to drift towards the base end. Then you have a Will who's going to be asked to cover tight ends or running backs, and when you have all three on the field.
Yep.
When you go to 2, the Sam role is gone and the Will role shifts inside instead, and now you become like a second middle linebacker almost.
Right.
Jack's still going to be the Mike, but then you're going to have a second off-ball linebacker, which is still going to be called the Will, but then you're going to be asking your nickel to help out in some coverage situations, or you're going to roll a safety down, which is what Branch would do. They'd roll a Branch down, and he'd into like a rover role, and then he would take coverage of the linebackers of the tight ends and the running back, right? So when they shift into 2 linebacker sets, I think Derek can play that kind of Mike adjacent Will role as an interior guy.
Yeah.
And when they shift to 3 linebacker sets, then he shifts to, I think he can shift to the Sam, and you bring Malcolm Rodriguez on to be more of that coverage guy who can also, blitz. Excuse me. So when you say when can Derek play the Will, I don't think he's going to play a Will in a 3 linebacker set because he doesn't have the coverage. But in a 2 linebacker set, the way they shift their Will to an interior role, I do think he can play that.
Yeah.
And so that's where I kind of envision Derek. That's one of the reasons why they like Barnes, why they like Malcolm, is that those guys can play all 3 of those linebacker roles pretty fluidly.
And therefore on all 3 downs, right?
Yes. But Jack's always going to be the Mike. You're never moving Jack. Jack's going to be, he is the center of your defense. You never take him off the field. He's always there. It's just, how do you fit the other pieces in?
Yeah.
And if you don't have a guy who can cover like Anzalone, that's why I think maybe you end up shifting towards more 2 linebacker sets, bringing on a third safety or another nickel like an Izzian or McCreary, and having those guys kind of match up against the tight ends and running backs in a way that Anzalone did last year. And then you end up putting Derek into spots that suit him better.
I do wonder if there's any competition for Barnes in that Sam role. Like Nowoski has some of that in him.
Yeah, I think they'd love it. They'd love to add somebody to it.
Right.
For sure.
And maybe that's the draft. And we were talking a little bit about edge and linebacker during our break here, about some of those guys, maybe the smaller edge guys that can kind of fill that tweener role between pass rusher and edge setter.
Yeah, there's guys in the 3rd round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, I think that can fit that for sure.
Yeah. It's an interesting situation. That to me still remains maybe one of the more fluid things. I think we have a clearer picture on what's going to happen on the offensive line. We have a clearer picture of what things look like a little bit in the secondary with some of the injury stuff still pending. But linebacker is one of those things where it's like they haven't really done a ton. Where do you think Clark fits best?
Honestly, I think Clark is really best at a Mike, which is why he's going to be, why I envision him as kind of like a linebacker 4 right now. And so like Barnes, when you shift to 2 linebacker sets, you could move him to a will and he'd be okay. I don't think you would want to put him out as like a 4-3 will. I don't think that best suits him. Now, can he surprise me? Sure, because I think he has good range, but I haven't watched him. I never really watched him cover in Dallas, so I don't know if that's in his skill set. Yeah. In college, he had the range, but he played almost exclusively from the mic, so it's different type of range you're looking at.
All right, let's go to Logan, Logan N on Twitter, MSU374. Says, I know our biggest concern was the Lions painting themselves into a corner with needs presumably at offensive tackle and edge, but is it possible that this draft stacks up in a way that those needs line up with best player available?
Yeah, certainly. And I do think that the offensive tackle class, because of the way things have shaken out, because of the league's overall thirst for offensive tackles has really driven up, I think, the price tag, or what the expectation of when these tackles are going to go. And then if this was a class that was maybe more top heavy, more elite talent, you might see some of those offensive tackles slide into day 2, but at this point we could see 6-7 of them go in the first round. And so I know sorry.
It felt like you did that one on purpose.
No, I didn't. But there's a couple really good tackles that are going to end up as like kind of mid-round guys, in my opinion. And that does line up well with the Lions' needs. I also think inevitably in every edge class, you have guys that fall into that middle of the first round range as well. So they are in a spot where what seemingly looks like their 2 biggest needs could both be there on the table at 17. I think it's harder to project at 50. Right. It looks like this edge class is deep enough that some guys will flow down there. I don't think the tackles are. This is an unusual year where it seems like almost every team is not just needy of offensive line, but almost desperate for offensive linemen, both tackles and centers. Yeah. And it's so I do think there's going to be a lot of attention on those 2 offensive line positions this year.
Yeah. And I still remain a little bit concerned about, I don't love the idea of Larry Borum being the week 1 starter in any facet. So, and I have to imagine most teams probably feel that way and see that the Lions are in the situation they are in, and that makes them vulnerable to be jumped in the draft. And I mentioned this during our break, and I'll mention it again. Our good friend Brandon Lee Gowden literally put out on Twitter saying the Eagles are a good bet to trade up for a tackle in this year's draft.
Yeah.
They're picking below the Lions. So that's something to that Brad is going to have to expertly navigate. And that's something that I think Brad has generally done a relatively good job of, particularly with the trade downs. Mm-hmm. The trade ups are whatever they are, but like knowing who's going to go where, he's been pretty good at. And so I just think he's going to have to I don't want him to be uber aggressive. We talked about this on the POD cast yesterday, or a couple days ago. Not thrilled with the idea of trading up to get your offensive tackle, but you're going to have to navigate it in some sort of way, in that, yes, there's a lot of offensive tackle talent, but like you said, there's a lot of offensive lineman needy teams in that first round that are going to be gunning for some of these guys.
It's such an unusual draft in the fact that the 4 of the 5 arguably most talented players in this draft are not traditional positional value type players.
Right.
You got a safety, a couple linebackers, a running back. Yeah. Those elite talent guys are at positions that aren't typically valued as top 5, top 10 players or position roles. And so when are people going to be willing to strike on that value guy versus trying to take a more steady position like an offensive tackle or it's going to be an interesting draft night, like just to see how those first 10 picks play out. It could be a bit unusual from what we've seen over the last decade.
We're going to stick with the draft here with this question from Daniel E., one of our Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers, says, with regards to the tackles in this class, there's some chatter among the top prospects about their position in the pros. Are they a left tackle? Are they better suited at right tackle? Should they be moved to guard? In your estimation, what of those tackles in the first 2 rounds are without a doubt a left tackle, and which are without a doubt right tackles in this draft?
All right. I feel pretty comfortable with my assessment of these guys.
Okay.
Maui Noah is my number 1. I think he's a right tackle. I know people have suggested that he can kick in the guard. I think he could kick in the guard, but I think he's a right tackle, plug and play day 1. Fano is, I believe, a right tackle as well. He also is athletic enough, and there's questions about his arms, that he may slide, or he could also be viewed as a guard on some teams' boards as well. So right off the bat, first 2 guys are right tackles or guards, depending on what team you're talking about.
Sure.
Next after him is my Blake Miller Monroe, right next to each other, but they're also very clear. Freeling, left tackle. Blake Miller, right tackle. That's where they play. That's where they have played. That's where I think they project best. And I would play both of those guys at those 2 spots. Caden Proctor is next. Again, just like with the other guys, with the top 2, he's a tackle or a guard. I think he's a left tackle with the ability to play right tackle, but also maybe guard. I think he has some flexibility in how you can move him. Caleb Lomu from Utah, left tackle. He's not as powerful as you would like, but he's a terrific pass pro guy. I think he would be a good left tackle. And then Ihanachor, right tackle. I think he fits the style of the way you look at right tackles. And so I would take him and I would play him at tackle. So in those top 7, I have 3 left tackles with one of them that can play guard, and then 4 right tackles with 2 of them that can play guard.
I guess you answered that question. You kind of cheated your way out of it, but I'll allow it.
Oh, okay. Well tell me what I cheated my way out of.
Well, if you're saying this guy could be a left tackle or a guard, you're not answering which guys are without a doubt a left tackle, which guys are without a doubt a right tackle.
Without a doubt, left tackle, right tackle. Blake Miller is a right tackle. Freeling is a left tackle. For the Lions, Maui Noah and Fano are both right tackles. Proctor is a left tackle. Lomu's left tackle. Ihanachor is a right tackle. How's that? For the Lions.
Sure.
Okay?
Okay.
I think they all have a specific side. I just think the guard flexibility makes them more appealing to other teams, and I think other teams will view that.
You over-answered the question. You gave them more information than they were asking for, which is never a problem. So
You're welcome.
I'm just giving you
you're welcome
for it.
No problem.
Tyler B is going to round out our show here. Another Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers. Shout out to all of our PODD subscribers. I'm curious how concerned or confident you are in the interior defensive line's ability to generate pressure. If you're confident, what assumptions give you that confidence? If you're concerned, how would you like this to be addressed before the start of the season?
Yeah, I'm not confident. I wish I was. I don't know what Levi's situation is going to be. I don't know why Wingo wasn't used last year more than I thought he could have been. Sure. There's a reason why I have been scouting day 3 pass rushing interior linemen, defensive linemen. Guys that can pass rush from the 3 or the 4i, those are appealing to me. And I'm looking for a couple of guys on day 3 that I believe can do that. If you want a couple names, I can't. Let me see if I have a pronunciation guide on him, just so I don't mess it up. He's from Texas A&M. Tyler Onyedem is played at Texas A&M, Iowa State before that. He's a pass rushing 3 or a 4i, and then Zane Durant from Penn State. another, I think, pass rushing 3 technique. Caleb Proctor from Southeast Louisiana, pass rushing 3 technique. Maybe even you could add Landon Robinson from Navy into that mix. But those are the guys that I'm looking at because I see interior depth at the defensive line is an issue, and I am not confident that the pass rush is going to be there because Alim is coming off that ACL,
Right.
and Levi's coming off an ACL, and I just don't know where else they're going to get it because the one guy who gave it to him didn't play last year, so that's why I'm scouting those guys.
Yeah, the problem is like there's kind of a nose tackle need too. You kind of lost 2 nose tackles this free agency.
Yeah, the trick is if you're shifting Tyleek there, which is I think the thought process, right?
Yes, no doubt, but that's.
But yeah, you could use some depth behind him. For sure.
Right. There's no depth. Chris Smith, maybe. Like I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. But there's a lot of nose tackles in this class too that are interesting.
Right. The pass rush aspect of it, like if you squint, you can see it, but you're making, as the question from Tyler suggests, you're making a lot of assumptions. You're making an assumption that Alim bounces back after the ACL. You're making an assumption maybe even Tyleek jumps a little bit in his progression, because one of the things they kept saying about him after they drafted him was like, we see long-term pass rushing potential in him. We see him kind of on the same Alim McNeill track. And we didn't really see that until year 3 of Alim, where some of the pass rushing chops came to be. And so maybe it's a little bit early to expect that from Tyleek. And then the other assumption is, of course, Levi, that he can provide anything coming off an ACL surgery. Granted, that surgery happened over a year ago at this point. Yeah, it's a fair question to ask. It's a fair concern to have. And it kind of lines up with these laundry list of questions that we have about the Detroit Lions going into 2026, and why I think there's a healthy amount of skepticism about the team, but also, like, if some of these questions do go in Detroit's favor and some of the injury stuff does go in Detroit's favor, and God forbid the schedule is as easy as it looks, like you can see an improvement from last year in terms of overall record, even if you can't see the improvements in the roster right now. It's going to have to result in some blind faith that Levi can do something, blind faith that, these year 2, year 3 guys are going to make their jumps, or blind faith that the injury luck will finally go in Detroit's favor. But what else? I mean, everything is blind faith at this point. It's blind faith, or it's blind, whatever the opposite of faith is. Pessimism. We don't know. We don't know how these like 50-50 questions that we have about this team are going to play out. And I think defensive tackle is a really good example of, like, we don't know. It could work out just fine. They might need to plug in several resources in that position to get to a level of fine. And do they have enough resources to plug that in this offseason? Who knows?
If you want a stylistic match from a nose tackle standpoint for what they look for when they ask, because they look for nose tackles who can also create pressure but are like stout against the run. Dante Corleone from Cincinnati, 81% of his his nickname is literally the Godfather. No surprise. 80% of his snaps came from the nose, the 0 or the 1, but he generated 27 pressures last season.
Dang.
Yes. Yeah.
At 340.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. That was in at 340. That was in 2024. He created 27. Last year he had an injury thing, but so I'm looking at his 24 numbers, 27 pressures in 2024. Plays 80%, and that's what drew them to Alim, right? Was that ability to create pressure from a 0 or 1, and so Corleone is a guy who gets he gets a lot of love in draft circles, but he doesn't get a ton of hype. I think if he's there like in the 4th round, he'd be like a steal. They'd love him. I saw someone ask about Rayshon Benny in the chat, who's another like pass rushing 3 technique with a 4-eye. I think he's a day 2 guy. That's why I didn't mention him earlier. If he slides to round 4, I'd also be interested in him in round 4.
There you go. All right. We'll close things out there. If you want more midweek mailbag, for one, make sure you watch our live shows on YouTube and Twitch. There's a lot of bonus content in between segments. Number 2, become a Pride of Detroit Direct subscriber, because next Friday, we are going to record an episode of the Midweek Mailbag just for our Pride of Detroit Direct subscribers, and those tend to go long. We try to answer a question from every single person that submits one through our Pride of Detroit Direct subscription, which sometimes lasts 4 or 5 hours long. So if you want to be a part of that, you want that extra content in your life as we get closer to the NFL draft, go to prideofdetroit.com/subscribe and become a Pride of Detroit Direct subscriber. But until next time, that over there is Erik Schlitt. I'm Jeremy Reisman. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. It's chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
Okay. All right. Let's get to a couple alerts. We'll answer some questions. Then get out of here before 1. Maybe well before 1. Give us some time to eat some lunch. Where did we leave off? JT Sam 10-bit says, how do you balance best player available in need when it gets harder to address your needs due to less cap space, cash, and draft picks that we've traded away on project players that don't really play?
Great question.
You've certainly made it harder on yourselves to do all of that things. And so I think the answer is you hope that your free agents way overperform their contracts. And you stop messing up with your trading up in drafts.
So I may go a little bit down the rabbit hole here, but
here we go. Buckle up, everybody.
No, the way I was just talking with this with a couple of people. The way the draft board is laid out, you're ranking guys vertically by position, right? Yep. And then you're also ranking them horizontally by talent level. Okay.
Cheers, yeah.
This guy's a starter. But look, we have this one, and then we don't have anybody at these positions. Then we have this guy, and then this guy. These are all guys at the same talent level. So in free agency, it's the same way. Take the same concept, you rank free agency vertically, and then you rank them across by their things. So then you've got these two boards, free agency and the draft, and then you basically like overlay them, and you say, okay, this draft is going to be good here, where if I might have a chance to get this big bucket, this big pool of defensive tackles in the 4th round, for example. And so I think it's going to be more productive for me to kind of see who I think is going to be there. And then maybe I don't spend at that position, because that position, it's light at defensive tackle. Most of my free agent defensive tackle is above and more expensive. So I just don't add a defensive tackle in free agency. Now, again, this is when you're getting into like the nitty gritty. You're just giving yourself overall concepts. I'm not saying this is a driving force, but you look at where free agency is strong and where the draft is strong, and you kind of weigh where you think you might look at certain things. Now, I'm not saying you're going into the drafts, there's a gamble to that strategy. And that's why maybe you're like, hey, I've got these backup plans after the draft as well, in case this doesn't fall to me the right way. But it gives you a general concept of, maybe I'm not going to add this position in free agency because I think there's a boatload of guys in this one bucket that I think could fill that role. Or I don't see this in the draft, so I've got to find a guy in free agency. I got to trade for a guard and then get a veteran guard and then sign another veteran guard. You know what I mean? Like, I got to get those guys in free agency at these vet minimum guys, because I don't like the draft interior guys on day 3 at all. So things like that, that's how you kind of fill those needs, is you're being predictive in hoping that you're making the right judgment calls on who's going to be where in the draft, so that you can target some of those guys in free agency.
So did they do that?
Well, we'll find out. Right? I mean, that's.
I mean, what you're telling me is because they didn't sign any defensive tackles, they're going to draft one early.
It's what makes me think they're going to draft one, right? If not, it's sure. Yeah. That's how, when I'm breaking down what I think they're going to do, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking at where's the draft, have talented guys. What didn't they address? And then like, do they line up?
Right.
I think that's why people are so strong on them going offensive tackle is because those things line up, right?
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like their moves there were kind of telegraphed. Like as soon as it was clear that Decker was out the door, we knew the best they could do in free agency was add an emergency guy. And we knew that the best way to maintain the high level of standard that they have for the offensive line to make sure that, as Dan Campbell said, the offensive line performance is everything. You have to draft one early.
Yeah, well, I mean, he said it. Even if Decker returns, we're probably still drafting a guy. Is basically what he said, right?
Yeah, we need help.
So
he didn't say draft, but yes,
he basically said it.
Blitzing Lion, $2 super chat over on YouTube says Jeremy loves trading up. We should do it all the time. I think people are starting to come over to my side with that one if they weren't there already. Just like people are starting to come over to my side when it comes to snow games after the awful Patriots playoff game. I can already sense some, like, there's this. I'm a little surprised by this.
Yeah.
But I can already sense a backlash to a Jahmyr Gibbs extension, and I'm not sure where it's coming from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because it's coming.
It is coming.
Once they traded away, that's been telegraphed, right? And they've
yes.
I mean, beyond them just outright saying it, like no smoke there. It's happening.
I still have a lot of the same reservations that I've always had about paying a running back. But at the same time, like, this is going to happen. And I'm not going to fight it. And I don't think it's like, how is this team possibly going to succeed with an expensive running back? It happens. There are expensive running backs out there on teams that succeed. You know where I think it's actually coming from? I think it's coming from Seattle.
Oh, well.
I think people see, they let Kenneth Walker walk.
If Kenneth Walker didn't have an injury history, they wouldn't have let him walk. Like, I think they would have made it work.
Like, he hasn't been anywhere nearly as productive or integral to that team as Gibbs is to Detroit. Like, anywhere near.
Right. And they still have multiple running backs on that roster, too, that they've invested in. And, they drafted, what was his name in the second round? Kid who played for Michigan, right? then went to UCLA. Yeah. I don't know.
Charbonnet.
Charbonnet was the guy I think they were like, hey, Walker can't stay healthy. Charbonnet is going to be our starter. And then Charbonnet ended up not being healthy. but yeah, I mean, it's a different situation.
Yeah.
I still think they might draft a running back. With Pacheco only on a 1-year deal, Vaki not proving it, I still think running back's on the table.
If it's on the table on day 1 or 2,
no.
I'm storming out of that building. As everyone in the media room stares daggers at me as soon as the pick is made, I'm walking out. Brad in New York, 36 months subscribed on Twitch, says, Jeremy, are all of your pre-written free agency stories out of the file? Anyone hanging around that you were expecting in the future? No. I think the only shoe that I'm, and this is more hoping than expecting to drop, is Maddox. I'd like to see him re-signed.
Man, looking at this roster, like, you've got, with your 9, if you keep your 9 draft picks, you've now got 14 spots for UDFAs, and they keep between 12 and 17. So there's not a whole lot of room.
eight UDFAs, signed 6 more free agents.
Sure. That seems very much in line with what a cash strap team would do.
I mean, just sign him to the deals you've been signing him to. These 1 year, $1.4 million. That's not any different than a UDFA contract, essentially.
Yeah.
The UDFA contracts aren't even going to count against the cap. They're going to be
right. Well, not
below the 53 threshold.
Any veteran free agents, it's the same thing at this point.
Right. So we had 6 of those guys instead of UDFAs that aren't going to make the team.
Maybe they will. Maybe their youth movement was just a ploy.
It's not a youth movement. That was coincidence.
Sure.
Per Brad Holmes.
Sure.
Any other takeaway? Like, since we haven't talked completely about everything discussed there. Anything else stick out to you in the Holmes podcast appearance? I don't know.
I thought he did what he normally does, right?
Say nothing.
I thought the guys asked the right questions.
Sure.
But I think he did a good job, of half answering them and creating a lot of smokescreen and not giving much away.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about Bourne. We talked about Edge. I'm trying to think what else was there. I'm going through my own tweets.
I did like the point when Colton said the last edge you've drafted in the first top 50 picks was Pascal. And then Holmes went, well, we had Aiden too. And then Colton was like, but Pascal was the more recent. Like, I don't think Brad got what
it was the same draft.
Yeah.
Pascal was later, more recent.
A little bit later. Yes. Yeah. I got what both guys were doing. I don't think they connected on what they were trying to say. And, but I found that humorous. I'm like, I know what Colton's trying to say. I don't think Brad knows what Colton's trying to say.
Yeah.
I was hoping that they might argue a little bit and try and prove their point, but Colton showed very good restraint and professionalism and just was like, let's just shift it. I thought that was potentially going to catch Brad off guard, but because he gets rattled sometimes.
He does.
I get that though, man. I get that completely.
For sure.
If I was in his spot and I was talking to the media all the time, I would for sure do that as well.
I will say his answer on the Terrion Arnold stuff wasn't eye-opening, but I thought, like, first of all, I really like the term pessimistic planner, which is what he used.
He's got he comes up with some good phrases.
Right. I mean, he's just basically saying hope for the best, plan for the worst, which is like it's exactly how you should approach something like that. But I think some people are like trying to jump, okay, well, he didn't really do anything at corner, so that must mean Terrion's fine. And I'm like,
Rock is the guy.
Rock, sure, but like you probably wanted Rock either way.
Oh yeah.
But
because outside corner 3, you got to have a good outside corner 3. You got to have a good tackle 3.
Keep hammering that point home.
I will. Good decade into it.
Hey, they finally got their OT3. Now they just need an OT2.
I know. You get an offensive tackle, and the offensive line looks so much better. Like, so much better.
Yeah. There's still questions, in my opinion, but, like, it definitely looks better.
Well, yeah. Yeah. There can be, because you're counting on a rookie at a tackle spot. You're counting on some of the younger guards to have better seasons, but
and Cade Mays too. Like Mays is
to fit.
Still very much a question.
Yeah, there's going to be questions, but I think if you get a tackle, you have a chance to be more stylistically representative of what you want to do in the run game. To just punch people in the face.
It's really fascinating, and we had mentioned it several times over the years of how there had to be a youth movement on the offensive line. It's just interesting to now like see it happening and seeing that room go from like literally one of the most expensive in the NFL to
And best.
potentially be one of the cheapest.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough transition. Last year was not, what people had become accustomed to because you're in that transition.
Right. What else did he talk about? We don't need to talk about the Dan and Brad relationship stuff because it's annoying and dumb.
I heard they're fighting.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I didn't learn anything about the Taylor Decker stuff. I was talking to you about this a little yesterday.
No.
I didn't love his answer there. I wish there would have been a follow-up because Brad's message was nothing surprised us. We knew this was a possibility. We knew that was a possibility. We had discussions. We were transparent, blah, 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 blah. There still is no clarity on why Taylor Decker specifically used the word surprised about the conversations they had once he had decided he was returning for next year. That's the disconnect that it's the only thing I wanted to know about the Decker situation. Why was Decker surprised by, presumably, this is me making an assumption, that the Lions wanted him to take a pay cut if he wanted to come back and play for them? Why was that a surprise to him? And if it truly was, do you, Brad Holmes, regret not being absolutely clear about that from the get-go? It's a tough question to ask him.
I still think they were expecting him to retire.
Probably.
Right.
But even if you are pretty certain, you have to be prepared for that not to be the case. Do you have to be prepared for?
Well, they were, and then they and that's why they had the difficult conversation with him after he decided.
But preparing involves informing the other side of that, and you would have avoided this in the grand scheme of things, who cares that it looks weird that he decided to come back for year 10 with the Lions and then a week later is asking for his release. It's bad PR. It looks weird, but everyone's going to get over it in 2 weeks. But to say you're prepared and your player saying he was blindsided, essentially, that's not being prepared.
No, I think he wasn't prepared.
Decker?
Yeah.
Part of being prepared is telling your other players to be prepared.
Again, I think they took a gamble.
Yeah.
And said, we're not going to say anything that makes him feel bad as he goes off into retirement. And if he decides not to retire, then we'll address the uncomfortable conversation. And they were trying to avoid the conflict. And so,
listen, I have that problem too, and my therapist is talking me through that. It's a bad habit to have.
Pass your therapist number over to Brad Holmes.
But again, this is the part that is a disconnect for me, is you pride yourselves as an organization on being truthful with your players, being transparent with your players, being upfront with your players. If your explanation of what happened, they failed in that. They failed in being transparent. They failed in being truthful.
I certainly
to a player that it had earned that level of respect, that you should be upfront with them.
Again, maybe the calculus changed too from January to March.
Maybe.
Right? Maybe they got into the details of the offseason and said, "Oh, things are not quite the way we expected."
Then they weren't prepared.
Or things are shifting. You could still have backup plans and have an idea and hope that things go one way and then they don't. I get the idea of not wanting to have the uncomfortable conversation. Did it backfire? I do think it backfired on them, but I also understand let's not tell the guy that we're going to, let's not tell the guy who's going to go off and this is a guy who's probably going to retire. Do we want to tell him that if he doesn't retire, he's going to get a pay cut? And then we have
yes,
forged a bad relationship.
It helps him make a more informed decision.
I'm not disagreeing, but if you're talking about a team that's still working on mending relationships with people who are retiring, or maybe the calculus changed. Guys didn't become available, and there's all kinds of things happening, man. They can't.
You're giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not.
I think you're expecting them to know everything because
what is Brad Holmes doing the rest
research.
of the regular season? Just kicking back. Start planning for the offseason. Know how much cap space you need, and tell Taylor Decker, hey, to help your decision in retirement, just know that if you decide to come back, we're going to have some conversations about your current.
But
contract.
what if they didn't know that they were going to have to? But what if they didn't know they were going to need?
They weren't prepared.
That's not necessarily true, because you're expecting them to be infallible. You're thinking that being prepared means that you don't make mistakes.
No.
Yeah,
it means,
dude.
It means I spend about him.
Do you know how many hours I spend on going over the draft? Yet I still don't know two, and yet I still don't know.
I'm not asking him to predict the future. I'm asking him to say, hey, create two different realities. Taylor Decker retires, this is what we do. Taylor Decker wants to come back, this is what we do. Sure. Lay all of that out for Decker to see and tell him.
But what if he doesn't know those two realities at that time?
Of course he doesn't know at the time. You tell him, hey,
no,
if you don't retire, we have a plan in place, but it requires you having some conversations about your current contract. If he chooses to retire,
we're going in loops, because again,
that's how our conversations work usually.
Again, you're expecting him to have the answers, and I'm saying,
what answers? What do you mean?
You're expecting them to have that plan in place that they for sure knew that that's what they were going to do. And maybe they didn't know that that's what they were going to do.
No, for me, it's just having a budget. It's just, hey, this is how much money we want to have in the offseason. This is how we do it with Decker retiring. This is how we do it without Decker retiring.
Sure. And you're expecting him to do that when the salary cap hasn't been set for the year, when you don't know how much, you have an idea of how much it's going to be. You have an idea of how much your adjustments are. You have an idea how much the league's going to give you back. You have an idea of how much rollover you're going to have, but you don't know all those numbers for sure. Plus, you don't know exactly what the market's going to look like or how high things are going to price out. And so those factors are all movable pieces, and maybe they thought they'd be able to make it work, and then they were like, oh, maybe we don't.
I just don't know if there's that much variance in what happened versus what they expected to happen.
Right.
To necessitate a complete change in, what you're basically suggesting is maybe they thought they could fit Taylor Decker in their salary cap at 20 whatever million in cap space.
I'm saying it's a possibility. I'm saying it's a possibility that maybe that's what they thought. It's also a possibility that maybe they didn't want to hurt his feelings. There's all these different possibilities that I'm saying that are beyond just
that you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not.
No, I'm saying they could have been 8 other different things that could have happened beyond just they weren't prepared, they suck.
Hold on. That's not.
They suck at being prepared. They did them wrong.
Don't exaggerate my point of view.
But you have one perspective. I gave you 4 others. Okay. That's what I'm saying.
4 others. Name all 4 right now.
All right. I said
don't do that. No, McVay Rob, 36 months, says this is how many sacks Aiden gets next year. He sets the season record by 10. I'll take it. Thank you for this 36-month, 3 years. Subscribe to the channel. I think we've gotten our bickering out of the way here.
No, we haven't. No.
No. You want to go more? You got to go around 2?
Not yet.
Do we want to talk about trading up, trading down?
No, I don't want to have that conversation again.
Okay, how about this? How about we talk about our good friend Ben Solak?
Okay.
Who, if you haven't seen...
I didn't read the article yet. I saw the Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
Which is good.
So,
about that.
Solak, every year I think he does this. He ranks free agency classes for each team, but he doesn't do it in the way of like, these are the best players that got added. These are the worst players that got added. He tries his best to contextualize each team's free agency individually in terms of needs. He actually has a full breakdown of... Wait, what happened? Something about my article got edited out. Now I need to re-add it.
What do you mean? It's on the site.
No. Yeah, but part of my copy and pasting from Ben's article got deleted. Oh.
Really?
That's weird. It's in the editor, but it's not on the on the page itself. Like the bullet points after how he is ranking the teams is not showing up on the website, but is definitely there in the draft. That's weird.
Hit save. Update and save.
There's no save option. I will mess with it and just see if it shows up.
Yeah.
I swear it was there before.
I could look at it if you want.
Hold on. Anyways, there's a live audience to it here too. So Ben ranks his free agency classes based on the 5 following criteria: the value that they got for the money they spent, the flexibility on their roster approaching the draft, the contract details that provide them leverage, how they manipulated the comp pick formula, and what they could have done but didn't do. So, given all of that, he ranked the Lions with the 3rd best free agency class. It still didn't work. Only behind, I think it was the 49ers. Oh, and Steelers. This is what he wrote about what he
liked. Were third. They were third. Oh.
Yes. He said, I loved, quote, the dart throws. Detroit has more needs than it has money to throw around, but it did extremely well to take high upside swings in the margins. Pacheco can't be 100% of what David Montgomery was for them, but the Lions don't want that anymore. They want a capable short yardage pass protecting back to relieve Jahmyr Gibbs, and they got that at nearly the vet minimum. The Lions also got a functional starter at center in Mays at $8 million per year in an offseason in which the center market was exploding. Wanham is ideally a number 3 edge instead of a number 2 option, but opposite Aiden Hutchinson, he can fill Al-Qadim Muhammad's shoes and then some. At corner, McCreary can start if he's healthy too. This class is filled with great value. And it's kind of hard to argue some of that. But at the same time, it also feels like a lot of these coin flips on these players have to land on the right end for things to work out right. Like, you know, Pacheco needs to stay healthy. Conklin needs to prove that last year with the Chargers was an aberration. Dortch needs to prove that he can.
Yeah, I mean, look, every free agent was a free agent for a reason, right?
Of course, yes.
So,
sure. But at the same time, these guys were all under $2 million for a reason as well.
Sure.
Yeah. And so
upside dart throws.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're all insurance. And if the right guy falls to you, you can add competition to that group.
And you know what? It's also worth noting. He had the Chicago Bears at 14. And hold on, I got to keep scrolling to find the Green Bay Packers.
29.
Still scrolling. 30.
Yeah, they lost a lot.
They did. And I believe our good friend...
the impact of the Micah Parsons trade.
Yeah.
You're seeing it.
Sure. Yeah. And don't worry, he's going to start out... I'm sure Micah Parsons is going to start the season off hot, too. Oh. Wait,
sure.
Never mind, I forgot.
Is he hurt? Well,
that was mean. I wish I hadn't said that.
I was actually happy with that. That was funny.
No, I'm making fun of a person that's injured.
Oh,
I don't like that. Don't clip that. Don't clip that. Lions royalty. We kind of had that conversation at the top of the show. Is there anyone who the Lions extended that you thought they should have let walk, similar to Montgomery in 2024?
I was going to say, low key with the Packers, losing their DC could affect them more than people think too. Sorry, go ahead.
True. So players that they should have let walk instead of extend. I think there's a little bit of hindsight bias with some of that stuff, like with Alim, right? Him getting injured months after getting his extension.
So we're talking about like guys that they should have let walk last season or the season before?
Any season. Just any guys that got extensions here in Detroit.
Barnes is the only one I've ever questioned.
At the time. In hindsight, are there any? In hindsight, are there any that you would have been like, eh?
No, because like Alim made market money and you can't predict an ACL. Like that's the price of doing business. Barnes is the only one I've ever questioned and still question. I questioned JMO and then I was like, oh, okay, cool. I get it now.
Right.
I agree with you, what you said earlier, that I think the signing of JMO should not have come. I hope it does not come at the cost of Laporta, because then I'll be back. I will swing back to not liking that contract again if it ends up costing them Laporta. Honestly,
yeah. And JMO's contract is relatively affordable, to be clear, even though I had the same take.
It is. But it shouldn't.
It's not cheap. It's affordable, but not cheap. If that makes sense.
If that ends up costing you Laporta, then I'm disappointed with it. But the Barnes move I get I think the Barnes move happened for two reasons. One, they knew they were losing Anzalone. And two, Shep loves Barnes because he can play all the spots well without being elite at any of them.
Because he thinks he can play all the spots well.
Well, he thinks he can start at every spot, every linebacker spot, even if he's not elite at any of them. Whereas like Anzalone was elite in his coverage skills. Jack is elite in most things he does. But
by the way, the really quick on the JMO contract, because he also has one of those contracts that it's option bonus, option bonus, option bonus, option bonus, option bonus.
Yeah.
It looks cheaper than it is because the cap hits are just $8 million this year, 10, 11 million next year, 14 million the year after that, 20 million the year after that. The problem is when it voids in 2030, you still have 40 million left.
Yeah, his contract reads like you're going to get a second one of these. Contract.
You better.
Yeah.
But like there's just a big $40 million waiting for the Lions at the end of the contract. I don't know. Maybe you just eat all that in 2030, and you say, "Hey, rookie quarterback, go ball out for us." Yeah, I don't think Laporte is more priceable than JMO. I just don't. Sorry. It's not. I know it's not going to be a popular take, and again, it's not a matter of like finding someone who can do everything that JMO does. It's more finding a wide receiver that can make that kind of impact in their own way. It doesn't have to be the JMO way. I just think in general, you can find that in the draft. You can find that in free agency. Tight ends a lot harder. Two-way tight ends that can play both running and receiving. It's not a lot of those guys. And that was something like I really thought Laporta was coming into his own as a complete tight end before his injury. Absolute complete tight end. Like no clear weakness tight ends. That's not easy to have.
There is one in this class.
You think
one
so?
Of those guys? Yeah, that's it. I think there's a couple other guys that are like really talented at tight end in this class, and they're really good at this or really good at that, but it's a complete. Sadiq is the only complete tight end. I think he's going to be labeled more as like a pass catcher because he's better at it, and that's where he's more impactful. But I do think his blocking is underrated. I think he can be a complete tight end. Other than that, the rest of the guys are going to be heavier leans towards one area or another. Some of them are going to be more balanced, but when you're a more balanced tight end, you're maybe not elite in any one area. Whereas I think Sam is balanced and can be elite.
Yeah.
And that's hard to find.
We're going to leave the discussion there. I think it's an interesting discussion to have. We kind of bookended the entire show with that specific discussion on those guys. But we gotta get out of here at 1. So we're going to get out a couple minutes early so we can take a bathroom break, eat some food. Then we got some stuff to handle, but appreciate you all hanging out for this Wednesday afternoon. Like I said, next week's midweek mailbag is going to be Pride of Detroit Direct only. So make sure you're a Pride of Detroit Direct subscriber if you want that presumably 4-hour show for next weekend. But until then, appreciate all your support. Appreciate all the views, likes, subscribes on both platforms. We're thinking about maybe expanding to a third platform in the near future if I can figure out the technology. And yeah, make sure you're following us on like all the socials and stuff. We're trying to expand Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all that sort of stuff. Not OnlyFans yet. We're not that desperate, but you know, I'll start wearing deeper V-necks to just like test it out. See, okay. Little quarter zip unzip. I don't know if people saw that with your name in the way, but Erik. Yoga pants, baby. All right. We'll see you guys.